You ever hear of the New World Order or the Great Reset? Well, today's remarks will be entitled The Great Reset Part 2. Get ready, Part 3. It's going to come next week. All right. We had this first reading from Isaiah. It's a beautiful scene. I think probably one of the most popular scenes, especially around Christmas time. A lot of us get Christmas cards, and there'll be a lion and a lamb on the Christmas card. And then it says, peace. And the imagery, of course, is that you have two species of animals that are normally not very friendly to each other. Why? Well, because on the food chain, the lion sees the lamb as lamb chops. Okay. Now, when Isaiah gives us that imagery, and of course there are other animals in there that have, natural animosities. Even the baby with the adder, the snake in the crib. Those are all very dangerous things. It talks about a dangerous world. And it talks about a world where people are at odds with each other. And the goal, of course, is what? What are we looking for? Peace. And of course, Jesus is called the Prince of Peace. And even in Isaiah itself, the great Handel, when he composed his oratorio, the Messiah, and Prince of Peace and Lord of all. So that's the image that we're being presented with, and that is the true image of the New World Order that is established when the Messiah comes. Last week, I began the discussion of the Great Reset, talking about how the Great Reset tries to, how can we say it, scare people into taking upon themselves a elite person or persons who tell them what to do for the sake of security. So let me just give you an example. Suppose somebody says to you, we are going to be invaded by Martians, right? And there is some great military leader out there that says to you, I will save you from the Martians as long as you do exactly what I tell you to do. You see? That's how you scare people into doing what you want them to do. It's a way of controlling people, and the Great Reset, or the proposed New World Order, according to the elites of society, first of all, has to get control of people. Right? I talked last week, and I'll just refresh you about how control comes about. Just two popular examples. We hear a lot today about climate change. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying it does exist. Tell you the truth, I don't know. I don't know. I know the weather changes. That's what I know, right? You come to Florida, it's hot. You go to New Jersey, it's cold. That's about as far as I can get with the whole thing, So, what do you do then? You begin to teach people that they are in imminent danger. Their lives are in danger. And you have to do what we tell you to do. And the danger, of course, is, Miami is going to be submerged underwater. New York City is going to be underwater. California, well, God knows what happens out there. But it's taught in schools, and it's kind of promoted in the media, especially social media, that you have people that become very frightened and say, we better do what they tell us to do because, if I don't, cut down on my driving, I'm going to be responsible for drowning all my relatives and friends around the whole world. See? So it's a scare tactic, and it makes people do what these certain elites are proposing, this certain theory, trying to get control of our lives. The same thing happened with COVID, okay? Now, you know as well as I do. I don't even know if the jury is out on it anymore. We were really scared. we were really scared. I think we were scared, weren't we? We were like staying 6 miles apart from each other. We were wearing helmets and masks, 3 and 4 masks. We were afraid we were going to pass on the disease. And if you didn't get the shot, you were a bad American. You were going to kill your grandmother. It just went on and on and on. And we were convinced, a lot of us, that we better get that shot or else we're going to die. And now we find out that a whole bunch of people that got the shots, the shots and 10 other shots plus, they still got sick, and some still died. But most people survived. Most people survived, thank God. All right? So, again, it's these kind of scare tactics. How do you begin to control populations? How do you control populations? Now, when we hear John the Baptist preaching today, John the Baptist is very much aware of not just the behavior of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, but he's also having in the back of his mind that Israel is a land under occupation. I always tell you this, look, John the Baptist didn't get his head chopped off just because he insulted Herod's wife, all right? She was a nasty lady, right? But there was more to it. Herod had to keep control of his part of Judea. And if he didn't, he would lose his job and maybe get sent to a Roman prison. So what does Herod have to do? What do the Romans do? They have to keep the people scared. And that's why when they crucified people, they had the rows and rows of those crucified being viewed when people came into Jerusalem or people when they came into Rome. This is what happens when you break the rules. The rules come from Rome. In our case now, the rules are coming from authorities even outside of our own country. So when we talk about this great reset, we talk about the proposed New World Order that the reset is supposed to bring in, we're talking about a government that is not an elected government here in the United States or Europe or wherever the case may be, but a world of elites that are pulling the levers, controlling the media and the education system so that we, the population, will be under their control. Okay, so far so good? Okay, so the first thing you have to do is you have to scare people. The Romans did a good job of it. The Nazis did a good job of it. Okay, and now the New World Order, Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, George Soros, they're doing a very good job of it too. They have control of a lot of people, and it starts with the children, scaring the children about what's going to happen if they don't cooperate. Okay, now, what is one of the ways, or we're going to give you a couple of ways in which they gain control of a population. How do you get this, what we call it, instantiated into the social fabric of the world? And as I said, I'm not just talking about the United States. I'm talking about the world. And how do you get this idea of the Great Reset instantiated into the world governments and how people behave? All right, the first one, you get these terms like diversity. Okay, diversity. Now, for most of us, it sounds like a really good thing. Well, let's be diverse. I like to go to Cold Stone ice cream, and there's all different kinds of ice cream. That's diversity. Well, that's not exactly what diversity means today. Diversity means that there is a certain algorithm or a certain mix that there has to be in order to have a just society. That's another catchphrase. When we talk about social justice, it's how the new elite define social justice, what Klaus Schwab thinks social justice should be. The traditional definition of justice is to give a person what is his or her due, what the person deserves. So that becomes removed, and now we set up different standards for social justice, and we call it diversity. So what does diversity mean? How do you divide people up? Well, usually these days we hear it by race or by gender. And you have to have that certain mix. And you'll hear schools, especially, you'll hear this in schools, and you'll hear it in government institutions. We want diversity. We want diversity. All right, so I just read recently that Harvard and Yale are no longer going to be relying on the LSATs. That's the test you take before you go to law school, because they want more diversity. All right? So the argument is that, well, we can get a whole bunch of different kind of people now that have different values and different gifts. So they might be more sensitive to doing pro bono work for the poor. Okay? That all sounds nice. Let me tell you something right now. If you find yourself in trouble, you better find yourself the best darn lawyer you can. Don't go around saying, oh, I want one that has compassion for the poor. It sounds nice, but you're going to end up in jail. Right? The same thing is happening in the medical schools now. I'm like, I can't believe this. I used to joke with friends of mine who are doctors. I say, look, I know this is happening in the law schools that we're talking about, diversity. I said, I hope you guys aren't doing the same thing. I mean, I want the smartest doctor I can find. I don't care if the guy has a great bedside manner. I want him to be smart, to know what's wrong with me, to help me get better. Right? But now the medical schools are also buying into this diversity, this mix of what the elites think is going to be good to have a leveling off of society. Okay? That's diversity. The next one we can find out is inclusivity. Inclusivity. Another term, it sounds very nice. We include everybody. Everybody can play on our team. Let me tell you something. Not many of us would be watching the Yankees anymore, would we? If we just let anybody play who wanted to play. There are certain people that have greater talent than other people have. Aaron Judge is going to get like $1 billion or something because he's a good player. If you put me on the team, we're worth about a nickel, if that. So, but you see, so inclusivity, you have to be discriminating. And the same thing then goes for even religion, because we now have in religion the threat of the government telling religious organizations, religious institutions, who they must allow to teach in schools, who they must allow to work in hospitals, who they must allow to be served in different religious organizations, even if those people hold values that are contrary to the values of the institution. Right? So all of a sudden now, religion has to be removed. When you talk about the New World Order and you talk about the Great Reset, religion is contrary to the goals of what these people want. Why? Religion talks about human freedom. Religion has certain standards. Religious people act in ways that are different from other people. And so they have their rules and obligations that they have to fulfill. To have the New World Order, you have to get rid of religion too. And this is communism. That's why the communists always go for religion. Religion has to be removed from the state. Chinese, we can see it happening all the time. We can see it happening in North Korea. We can see it happening in South America. Right? And it can happen, and it's going to happen here. If we're not on top of this, it's going to happen here. Inclusivity is just a word for saying there are no more standards. There's no more religion. The state makes religion. Right? The last one is equity. Now, again, it's one of those words. It sounds nice, but it's not equality. Equality means we all have basic rights, and we are able to exercise those rights according to our gifts and talents. Equity means that we're all the same. No matter what our gifts and talents are, we're all the same. And we're all going to get the same thing in remuneration for our services and for the work that we do. So it's not that you start off equal and then work toward your individual goals, which is what the Constitution says, to fulfill ourselves. But it's to say, we start off here and we all end up in the same place. And once that happens, there's no more freedom. Doesn't make any difference how hard you work, how smart you are, how attentive you are to your duties, we all come out the same. And of course, then has a financial impact, and that's the big one, of course, a financial impact. And already, this New World Order is trying to impose upon financial houses the idea that unless these financial houses, these people that run 401s and 403s and all of that stuff, unless they can measure up to the demands of the New World Order, then they will not be given government consideration. And they have to then be able to say, yeah, we're fulfilling diversity, we're fulfilling equity, we're fulfilling inclusivity. So there was an article, I guess, about a week ago, Wall Street Journal, about government, Department of Labor, now saying what a company would have to do in investing in 401s and 403s in order for them to be considered a good company and a good investment for the people that want to place their money in those investments for their future retirement. So you can see already that it's investing in the future, but it's no longer your future. It's what somebody else tells you your future will be and how much money you can have. And of course, that limits any kind of reward that you will get when your time comes to retire. Now, having said that, that's a lot. But there's more, and it's going to have to do with government, and I'll try to deal with that next week. Remember, when we're talking about the gospel, we are talking about the only great reset. It began, with the incarnation and then the resurrection of Jesus. That turns the world back on the right path. But it's also telling us that God came to free us from sin, to free us from oppression. God came that we might be fully alive and fully free human beings and never give up our freedom that was won for us by Christ to a new world order that tells you what they want the world to be and not what God created the world to be. I love you.